places where you might be at risk and you might be attacked personally. That's why it's so important that this council get to work immediately on protecting all of us from hate crimes, and that's why it's so important that the state Senate and the House of Representatives, with the Senate bill, that the Senate passed Senate Bill 363, a new civil rights law here in Connecticut, and Section 1 of Senate Bill 363 empowers the Office of the Attorney General to enforce our state's hate crimes laws. And so with our state's law enforcement, Commissioner Ravella and Chief State's Attorney Richard Colangelo, we can work together as a coalition to enforce our state's hate crimes laws and protect the civil rights of all people here in Connecticut. This is so important right now to families across Connecticut. You referenced what has happened in cities and towns across our state. It also happened in Milford. It's happened in my home city in Stamford. And it's really important that people know here in Connecticut that the governor, lieutenant governor, the United States senator, our law enforcement, we will do everything we can to keep you safe and to protect you from hate crimes here in this state and in this country. And so thank you again, Governor, for your leadership.
Thank you, General. And since you mentioned the Senate bill, I also want to mention Senate Bill 122, which has been passed in the Senate and is in the House, that would establish a unit within the Connecticut State Police to investigate hate crimes. And the governor and I are strong supporters of that, because it will give our state police more tools that they need to fight these crimes. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the person who has brought this very diverse and talented group of people to the Hate Crimes Council, our Governor, Ned Lamont.
All right, good morning, everybody. I was just thinking as I listened to those words, Dick and I were at Naugatuck yesterday, Memorial Day, and they're reading the names of those who gave up their lives for something much bigger than themselves, you know, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Dozens of names of folks, Civil War, to end slavery, World War II, you know, the Holocaust, probably one of the greatest crimes of humanity in the history of the world. And just reminded that you have to fight every day. And that's what this commission is about. And Doug and Amy Lynn, thank you for taking the lead on this. Thanks to each and every one of you for standing up and reminding us what it means. And we can point to these far-off events of hate crimes, but as Stephen mentioned, it was 100 years ago. Tulsa, the massacre. Hundreds of African Americans killed. And the perpetrators, their record was expunged. And it was expunged from history for an awful long time. And if you don't stand up every day to this type of hatred, it will continue. And it's not going to continue in Connecticut. It's not going to continue in America. This type of hatred is a different type of hatred, where we target people. This is not a random act of shooting. This is not a random act of violence. People are targeted because of their race, color, creed, sexual orientation, gender. And that is so contrary to everything we stand for here in Connecticut and everything we stand for as Americans. And I think William is going to be right there on the front line in terms of making sure these laws are enforced. And Ravella and Colangelo and our police, we know what these values are as we stand up every day, because that's what we do here in Connecticut. So I am really proud of each and every one of you making this effort on behalf of something bigger. It's about who we are as a people, who we are as a nation, who we are as the residents of the great state of Connecticut. We look at each and every person for who they are, and you're going to remind us of that every day. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. So now we're very happy that we have so many members of the media with us, and we're happy to take any questions, and we have this very distinguished panel of people to help us with questions.
When it comes to reporting process, I mean, with Latinos and Asians, you have that language barrier when it comes to reporting. I mean, what's the best way in terms of reporting that you can ensure people that they'll get justice when they report?
So this is
Okay, go ahead.
one of the provisions of the COVID-19 hate crimes law to enhance reporting and working with state and local law enforcement to overcome those language barrier issues, to get out in the community, encourage people to report. That's one of the biggest challenges in hate crimes law enforcement, is making sure that people in communities that are targeted, those communities tend not to have the strongest relationships with law enforcement. They may be immigrant communities. People may be concerned about, for example, their immigration status, even if they have no reason to be concerned about their immigration status. So I just did a PSA. I had to speak Chinese in this PSA, by the way, but I did it in Chinese and English with members of the state police and the FBI to get the word out there to people in the Asian American and Pacific Islander community that they should report. I think there's going to be more of that at the state level. So we're doing everything we can to enhance reporting, and one of the big parts of Senator Blumenthal's new law is to put resources into that so that we can fund enhanced reporting and data collection.
I might just mention, because that's really an important point. And as William said, the reason that this law is so important is it has real resources. It has money to fund outreach. Not only translators, because hate crimes affects a wide variety of people who speak different languages, but also English. And it will promote the training of law enforcement, the outreach to people, because very often stigma and shame and embarrassment prevent people from reporting as well. So the underreporting of hate crimes is a major obstacle. You can't prosecute something that isn't reported. And that's why this federal law with resources is so important in supporting this kind of counsel and local law enforcement, the local police departments and prosecutors who are really going to carry the ball here.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. You know, we have to continue the efforts that we started during the pandemic. What we found is that civic engagement is an action verb, and we have to do it in the languages of the people of the state of Connecticut. This governor and this government activated at the time of pandemic and reached into communities. That is the only way that we're going to hear from our people what they're experiencing and how it is that we can help each other.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, Governor, was there any discussion of this hate crimes unit in your meeting with the legislature? Because it's going to obviously involve an appropriation, so maybe you could tell us your position on the two bills that have been referenced, that bill and...
I don't think it came but specifically as part of those discussions, but we're going to do what it takes to make sure this commission has resources they need to get the job done.
But do you have a position on the creation of a hate crimes unit within the state police?
Yeah, so that Senate Bill 122 is something that our administration and Commissioner Ravella have been working on with the legislature to strengthen what they're already doing and empower them. Commissioner, do you want to say a couple of words about that?
So good morning. Directly to your question, the state police will devote a sergeant and 4 troopers to this effort. It'll be coordinated through the field operations group, which will encompass also the major crime units based on the seriousness of the complaint. So we will incorporate that just into our regular budget.
So you don't really need legislation to do this?
Now, the legislation points out a few different things. It also talks about mandatory reporting, which is important to my group within a 2-week period. And this group will have the opportunity to talk about education because folks, let's just say it goes underreported or non-reported in certain areas, right? And then we can have a better view of not only the hate crimes, but the extremist movement around the state of Connecticut.
Governor, would you be able to give us your opinion on the budget negotiations? Speaker
maybe we should do the off topics in a minute and keep to this issue just for a few more minutes. I'll stick around though.
Well, then, Governor, can we ask you your opinion on the bill that, and if you're not familiar with it, I can understand that. I'm not too familiar with the terms of it, sorry. The Attorney General's bill, the bill that the Attorney General just referenced.
You want to take that?
Yeah, Governor's been very supportive of my efforts
There you go.
to create a civil rights division in the Office of the Attorney General. The governor and I have spoken about this at length, and he knows that we have to put every law enforcement resource possible on protecting people from hate crimes. And we've talked about how Section 1 of the bill empowers my office to do that, and I know that the governor and I share that goal, and we want to be very aggressive on enforcing our state's hate crimes laws and protecting people in our community.
Have we gotten, and I didn't have a chance to check before this news conference, have we gotten any updated on the hate crime report?
In terms of data, I don't have the latest data today, but it's going up, and it's going up rapidly across the state and across the country.
I don't know if the ADL wants to weigh in on that.
Sure.
You can talk about what you're seeing.
Hi, I'm Steve Ginsburg. I'm the head of the Connecticut office of the Anti-Defamation League. And so we do track and report hate crimes and hate incidents, not across all kinds of hate crimes. Particularly, we have the most reliable data with respect to anti-Semitic hate crimes. We're seeing a very large recent spike in those in the past several weeks. We also got a lot of reports of anti-Asian incidents earlier in the year. We work very closely with law enforcement, FBI, to track across the state. We've seen, our numbers have sort of tracked national trends on these issues. And one of the things that I think is important to know, and that this commission, and I'm really proud to be a part of, can work on, is we've got hate crimes and we have hate incidents. Sometimes hate spreads in the form of protected speech that still makes people feel uncomfortable and like they don't belong in our country. What can we do about that? What can we do when hate is spreading online and crossing the line to actually conduct where people are being stalked and harassed? There's another bill, Senate Bill 989, waiting for a vote in the House after passing the Senate, that will focus on online conduct of doxing, and those are targeted more often than not at people who are members of the same protected groups by their race, their religion, ethnicity. And so there's a lot we can do education-wise, and encouraging people to report, making them feel comfortable that their claims will be followed up on and treated with respect, and that they will be pursued appropriately is really important. But it's also important to let them know that sometimes things that they think are hate crimes might be protected speech, and how do we as a community stand up to help them? Through schools, through community groups, through faith leaders. How can we make people feel like when something might not even be a hate crime, it still is hate, and we can make them feel more like they belong here in Connecticut? So, thank you.
Would that help? What would that help you in terms of like police in general and law enforcement? I mean, what exactly will change when it comes to that before the bill's legislation?
What will change with respect to?
What will those conversations look like with like local law enforcement?
So I think that what we see here is a Connecticut State Police and many local law enforcement officers in the Attorney General's office saying, we want to hear from the community when they are targeted based on who they are. We want to understand it better, make sure that all of our districts and units are reporting, make sure that they know that we're here to protect them from people who are threatening or assaulting them. There's also that lower level, what we see in schools with kids, name calling, bullying. We have to treat sometimes those different perpetrators differently. Are we going to treat students the same way as a violent extremist? Probably not when it comes to legal punishment or consequences. But as a state, we can get the language in people's hands, get them understand what their rights are, and know that there's a larger community here of people from across the state willing to be there to help them, to stand up as an ally, as an upstander, and say, we're not going to stand for it. We're going to have you we're going to be in your corner. So,
Let me just add to that, because I think that's a really good point. We can talk about the law, we can talk about criminal behavior, we can talk about enforcing this, But we really need you to stand up as well. These are incidents, as you just heard. And this is language, and it may be protected speech, but it still is obscene speech, and it's wrong speech. And you've heard it in the soccer fields. You heard it sometimes in social life, and sometimes we didn't speak up. And that's our job, is to speak up when you hear that. None of this kids will be kids. You speak up, and you say that's wrong. That's not what we do here. That's why we take these incidents like the noose up at the facility in Windsor. That's why we take the swastika on the wall in Yukon. We take that seriously, because you let a little of this germ come in and then it takes over. We're not going to let that happen.
Any other questions on the Hate Crimes Commission? All right, we thank everybody for coming. We really appreciate it.